Let us look at the sun's transit from the natal moon. In the first house, sun is said to give us fatigue or diseases. The sun kind of blocks the natural quality of the natal moon because of its rays, because of its strong rays. Therefore, the natives, when sun transits on the moon, feel more tired than the other times. Diseases can probably mean due to the dashabhuktis. If the native is having a problem or having a illness during the sun dasha, it kind of multiplies or it is more prominent. Loss of wealth and unhappiness from the sun's position is in the second house. The second house is a house of money, house of family, kutumba. Loss of wealth need not be necessarily a materialistic wealth. It could also be an emotional wealth, a loss of emotional wealth, therefore causing us unhappiness. Sun in the third house is acquisition of wealth with hard work. That means to say we will work hard because the third house is a house of upachaya. So the upachaya house is getting motivated by sun, who is a malefic planet, and we get the energy to do more hard work, thereby acquiring wealth. The fourth house is diseases, lack of enjoyment. Therefore, there might be, it could also mean, it need not be diseases. As I said, diseases only becomes more prominent or more emphasized when I am running the dasha of the disease, and or I am having diseases, and therefore when sun traverses in the fourth house, it might be more prominent. Lack of enjoyment could be simple reason I am more hardworking than I was, because it is aspecting fourth. Sun sitting in my fourth house from the moon will aspect my 10th house from 10th house. Therefore I might work hard, and therefore there might be no time for enjoyment. Mental anguish and ill health. Mental anguish and ill health is due to the sun blocking the emotional qualities of the fifth house. Sun in the sixth house, overcoming all diseases, freedom from enemies, and conquering. Here, the sixth house are the three R's: Roga, Rina, and Ripu, or diseases, debts, and distress. I conquer all the three negativities in the period when sun is in the sixth house. Tiresome journey for the seventh house. Seventh house is the house of journeys. Seventh house is also relationship with husband and wife, relationship with partnerships. Seventh house also denotes private parts, so there could be some trouble in this area for that 1 month. Similarly, there would be problems or punishments from government when sun is in the 8th house from the natal moon. So, danger in relationship, separation from relations in the 9th house. So, what we see is 7, 8, 9 giving us a continuous negativity, thereby feeling it more. Anything that lasts more than 3 months is felt by the native, because sun is traversing the three houses simultaneously, 7, 8, and 9th. You kind of get a feeling of dejection during these travels, but suddenly you also find that all these dejections that you were undergoing suddenly turns into a success, because the sun has traversed the 10th house, and the success becomes positive because it has gone to the 11th house of honor and new posting. There is sorrow in the 12th house, maybe due to this new success and due to the new posting. You might go abroad, or you might be separated from the family, or there might be a condition where the family might expect you to be there and you are not there. So therefore there would be sorrow and fighting. And as in the next slides, I have put in the moon, Mars, and the other planets. Let us look at moon. Moon lasts only for 2 days and 6 hours. Therefore, the results of the moon are short lived. When the moon is in the first house, we say dawn of fortune. Maybe on that day you might wear a new pair of dress. That could be fortune. Or on that day you might sign a deal. Or on that day somebody might invite you or call you for an interview. Therefore, it is a dawn of fortune. In the second house, there will be loss of wealth. What does he mean by that? When the moon goes to the second house from itself, they say that there might be loss, an emotional loss, a feeling of loneliness. When the moon goes to the third house, there will be success. What does he mean? For that 2.5 days, whatever you do and whatever good things you want to do, you could take that day to do the good things before, because there will be success. Supposing you are planning to buy a vehicle and you have moon in the third house. Yes, there will be success in that particular thought process or in that particular deal. Fear, fourth house, he says fear. All planets, kind of, especially the prana planets, that is the moon, the sun, moon, Mars, and Rahu, are considered the prana planets or paramatma planets or the atma planets. They seem to show in the transits a kind of a negativity when it comes to houses of emotions. The houses of emotions are second because it is the kutumba, 4 because it is family, 5 because it is emotion, 7 it's marriage, 8 because it is 1 sickness and diseases, 9 because it is dharma, bhagya, and 12 which is sickness, illness, unhappiness, hospitalization. So anything that is an emotion related house, these prana planets or the atma planets, that is the sun, moon, Mars, and Rahu, seem to influence a negative result. So in the fourth house, it is fear. In the fifth house, sorrow. Maybe your son is going abroad, so your sorrow. Or maybe your son is going to a hostel, there is sorrow. Because the fifth house is children, fifth house is emotion, the emotion is getting triggered. Then in a day or two, you'll say, okay, he's doing it for a good thing, or she is getting married. My daughter is getting married and she gets married, so it's a good thing to happen. And there is happiness and there is sorrow. Freedom from diseases, again, moon sitting in the fifth house seems to conquer all kinds of negativities, and therefore you have freedom from diseases. Because the sixth house is the house of short term diseases. The eighth house is a house of long term diseases. The sixth house is a house of debts. A sixth house operates, that means, oh, you bought a house on loan, it's a debt. Okay, a house on loan, it's a debt. You went to the hospital, it's a disease. You went to the court, oh, it's a dispute. So sixth house gives diseases, debts, and disputes. When moon is in the sixth, it conquers these negative influences of our life. Seventh house, happiness from marriage. Now moon is a karaka for marriage. Moon is a karaka for mother. Therefore moon is a dasha of moon, or moon is a natural marriage giver. Therefore seventh house being the house of marriage, seventh house being the house of partnership, it gives happiness. So that is an exception from the other emotion houses. Moon gives an exception in the seventh house, which is also an emotion house. The eighth house, troublesome events. Maybe you have something which is not right, something we are feeling uncomfortable. Maybe you are irritated. Maybe you feel the moon kind of gives you an onset of diseases, an onset, because see, the moon when it is in the eighth house, it will aspect the second house, a feeling of uncomfortableness. Eighth house, ninth house, sickness to father, sickness to in dharma. Maybe you will do an act, or there will be an inaction from you. You may not want to do anything that particular 2 days. The 10th house will be enjoyment, because again 10th house is a strong karma house, so there will be a fulfillment of all karmas. Then 11th house is joy, you will be happy. 11th house will be a joy. And 12th house might be expenditure due to ill health. So in the next slide, let us look at the results of Mars. Mars. Again, Mars is a cruel planet or a malefic planet. Therefore, Mars gives positive results only in Upachaya houses 3, 6, and 11. The rest of the houses, Mars doesn't give us positive results. In the first house, separation, mental troubles. Again, Mars is a strong planet or a malefic planet. It is influencing our natal moon. Therefore, the influence of Mars on the natal moon definitely gives us a feeling of mental trouble, or there are two types of feeling. One, if the moon is a very strong moon and the Mars sits on the moon, you will get this feeling that I can conquer everything. On the other hand, when the moon is weak, when my natal moon is weak and Mars sits on the natal moon, you come to this feeling, oh my God, I am in all kind of trouble. Right? That is the result of Mars on the natal moon. On the second house, when the Mars is in the second house from the moon, you have fear from wealth. Wealth here, there could be unnecessary expenses or unnecessary requirements which causes you a fear of wealth. Now, in the third house, he says success in all ventures, because Mars is the Karaka for the third house. Mars is a Karaka for what one calls it valor. Mars is the Karaka for being aggressive to take the necessary actions. Therefore, when Mars is placed in the third house from the moon, the nativity has the courage, has the ability to overcome all difficulties and have success in the venture. Fourth house, loss of position, because again, when Mars is sitting in the fourth house, or Mars is posted in the fourth house, he is aspecting the 10th house. 10th house is the house of our karma, and therefore the loss of position and also unhappiness could be the right word, because when my work is in trouble, I am unhappy in my home front. Therefore, the fourth house gives us both loss of possession and unhappiness. Fear and distress from the fifth house. In the sixth house, end of struggle. The end of struggles. Whatever difficulties I had, Mars in the sixth will help you to conquer these struggles. Maybe struggle of a disease. If you are having some illness during the Mars's transit for that 45 days, will allow you to overcome that disease. If you are having a court case or if you are having a distress, Mars in that 1.5 months will help you to overcome that court case. Similarly, if you are in debts, during the transit of Mars in the sixth house, you will be able to overcome your debts, or you will find ways to overcome the debts, or you should try to see the negativities that are ruling you at the moment and wait for the transit of Mars to come to your sixth house and work with it. Now, troubled in married life in the seventh house, very obvious. As I said, most malefic planets are not happy when they are in their what is called in emotion houses, right? Emotion houses, they give you trouble in the emotion houses. The seventh house is a house of what one calls it the married life. It calls partnership. There will be trouble either in the married life or even in the partnership. Even if a person has gone abroad or is traveling, there will be trouble when during his journey or her journey. Fear and loss of honor, as I said, 8th house is a Randra house. Any planet that gets associated with the 8th house, with an exception of 1 and 2, 1 or 2, the nativities do have a fear. It is more a fear than an actuality of happening. You know, a fear of loss of honor. It's more a fear of happening than really happening. 8th house. Because 8th house is also a house of change. 8th house is also a house of change. Therefore, fear and on a that's a fear or or a change can happen, whereby if I am moving out from a particular designation to another organization, you have the fear that I'm losing this designation, but the change is also there to win something better later. In the ninth house, it is again humiliation, because the ninth house is a house for father as well as for dharma. Mars in the ninth house kind of pushes you to do something which is non dharmic, probably the idea is. But then again, it is not necessary that we will exactly be doing something like that where we get humiliation, but the general idea is to be keep low when Mars is traveling or traversing over the ninth house. 10th house is misbehavior, because the 10th house is house of karma, and Mars in the house of karma, especially if you are an employed person, maybe your bosses may not accept your ideas or your thought process, thereby you may just walk out of his cabin without normal courtesies. That could also be called as misbehavior. Gain of wealth in the 11th house, as I said, all malefic planets, or rather every planet, gives good results when they are placed in the 11th house. Therefore, this native, any native with Mars in the 11th house for that 48 days to 60 days will definitely enjoy great wealth, or will make over whatever losses he was enjoying. Loss of wealth in the 12th house. The 12th house again is a house of hospitalization, and house of travel, house of foreign settlement. When Mars is posted in the 12th house, you can expect losses of any kind of a travel is an expenditure, any kind of a hospitalization is an expenditure. Therefore, loss of wealth is the word the Parashara has, Faladipika has used. So I would say loss, it could be more an expenditure. Now let us look at the next slide. Let's look at Mercury. Mercury probably gives us more results in the positive houses and less results in the negative houses, except the 6th and the 6th, 11th. 6th and the 12th. These are the only, 12th is the only house probably he gives us negative result. Otherwise, most of the emotion houses he gives us positive results. Now, the first house he has said loss of wealth. I wouldn't really go to that extent of loss of wealth. When Mercury associates with Moon, he may give you a gambling instinct, a loss of wealth due to gambling instincts. You may think, okay, come, let's look at this idea of, probably buying a particular property, and that might not, if you have expected 150% more, you may probably land up with 110% more. Therefore, he might, Faladipika might be telling loss of wealth. Second house, gains. So you bought a property in the first house when the Mercury was in the first house. Look at disposing it off in the second house, because you will get double. Whereas in the third house, which is the house of Upachaya, Mercury, when he is placed in the third house of Upachaya, gives you fear from enemies, because the third house is also enemies, brothers, sisters, and what is called courage. So when Mercury sits there, he kind of makes you lose your courage, and therefore there is a fear. Again, Mercury in the fourth house, begetting wealth. There might be a growth in the family. There might be extra member in the family. There might be property buying in the family. So there is growth in the family, or getting wealth in the family. Fifth house, quarrel with family. Again, fifth house is related to children, and Mercury, being Mercury, see, we have to always understand the qualities of the planets. Here, the quality of Mercury is to be in a very subtle way, like an imp. He just pulls one one question here, or he puts one seed of doubt in some one person's mind and puts another seed of doubt in another person's mind, and then this misunderstandings will get into the family, and there might be a quarrel in the 5th house as well as in the 7th house, right? So in the 6th house, of course, as I said, most of the planets in the 6th house, except for Mercury, I think, who is giving us fear from enemies, every planet has given us success or gains or overcoming negativities in the 3rd and the 6th houses, but except for Mercury, I think. Success in all ventures is the placement of Mercury in the 6th house. Misunderstanding with the family in the 7th house, as I said, he's a kind of an imp who will start planting some kind of doubts, which can create misunderstandings between the family. Gain of wealth, birth of child. Again, I said begetting wealth in the 4th house, gain of wealth in the 8th house. Now, we have seen that every other planet has so far has given us negativity in the 8th house except for Mercury. Mercury, even in a birth chart in the 8th house, is considered to be very good, because these people with Mercury in the 8th have a very photogenic memory, because Mercury in 8th is understood to give us photogenic memory, and therefore birth of child, which happens to be happiness from the 5th house. The 8th house is the happiness from the 5th house. Therefore, you could probably say because of that we have a birth of child. Losses all round. Now, we have seen the sun, we have seen moon and Mars. We have seen that all the 3 planets so far is giving us losses in the 9th house. In the 9th house, the 9th house stands for Bhagya, and therefore, see, father, Bhagya, society, dharma is all in the 9th house. And somehow so far what we have seen, we see that Mercury doesn't do good when he is placed in the 9th house. In the 10th house, he says there is happiness. Now, it could mean that there could be a change of job. It could also mean that there could be a promotion and an increment. So, that could give us happiness, because Mercury is a commercial planet. Increase of wealth in the 11th house, and fear from humiliation in the 12th house. Now, let us look at the next planet. Let us look at Venus now. Venus, if you see, it is positive all through except 7th and the 10th house. If you look at that, enjoyment of all kinds of wealth, gain from wealth, prosperity, increase in happiness, birth of children. 6th house, where all the other planets have given positive results, benefic Venus has given us a negative result in the 6th house and the 7th house. Trouble from wife. Venus is the Karaka for wife. Venus is the Karaka for marriage. And therefore, when Venus sits in the 7th house, either in transit or in the natal chart, we say trouble from the wife in a male chart. For the simple reason is the thought process here is Karako Bhavanashaya. Therefore, Venus in the 7th is negating the quality of the 7th house, which is marriage and happiness from the marriage. 8th house, now Venus, he has said that you will get wealth in the 8th house, unearned wealth. Wealth from some lady, wealth from mother, wealth from sister, wealth from sister-in-law, any kind of wealth. Or you may, and a baby is born, a female child is born, and there is wealth. Now, so far we have seen Sun, Moon, Mars and Mercury giving us negative results in the 9th house. But Venus gives us positive results in the 9th house. He gives us happiness, all round happiness. That means to say my bhagya, my dharma, my father is all good. The 10th house, now she has given 10th house as quarrels. Why? Why would we think about quarrels in the 10th house? Let us try to be a little logical in our understanding. 10th house is a house of karma, right? When Venus sits in the house of karma, it is aspecting the 4th house of happiness. Therefore, when you are putting more efforts in your karma, there is less efforts in family or enjoyment, which could create a tension in the family. 11th house, she has used safety, and in the 12th house they have used the word acquisition, because you have to think, or logical thinking would be that Venus exalts in Pisces, which is the 12th house from the Kala Purusha. All right, it is the 12th house from the Kala Purusha, and therefore in the 12th house Venus is set to give us good results. Most often than not, each of the planets' natural qualities have to be used when we are delineating the results of the transiting planets. So here we see that the 3rd house has given prosperity, whereas the 6th house has given us accidents. It could be accident due to getting hit by somebody, or it could be just a trip in the house. That also is an accident. So Venus in the 6th and the 7th are not very comfortable, and the Venus in the rest of the houses are, Venus is 6, 7 and 10 are not comfortable, but the rest of the houses are good. Now let us see the results of Jupiter. Hi, let us look at Jupiter. Various kinds of unhappiness in the 1st house. Now here is something I have not been able to give a logical reason, because natal Jupiter natal moon associated with transit Jupiter actually forms a Gajakesari yoga for that 1 year. For that 1 year it forms a Gajakesari yoga. So when a Gajakesari yoga is formed, why should there be unhappiness in various fields? I have not been able to answer, right? And I have not also been able to come to the conclusion that when Jupiter is on the natal moon, he gives trouble. I have not seen it happening, right? Now, so I would leave various unhappiness. This is exactly what Phaladipika has said, and I am putting it across. But my experience, it has not shown unhappiness when Jupiter is transiting over the natal moon. In the 2nd house, there is gain for money, very easily answered, because from the moon, Jupiter is a Karaka for wealth. Jupiter is the Dhanakaraka, therefore 2nd house is the house of wealth. Therefore Jupiter, when transiting the 2nd house from the moon, will generally allow the native to generate money. Now, so far the malefic planets were giving us good results in the 3rd house, whereas Jupiter in the 3rd house does not give us good results, but on contrary negates the good results of the 3rd house. 4th house, he says sorrow. Now, it could also mean there is a separative influence in the family. 4th house is also family. 4th house is also happiness. My son goes away to US or some other country. There is sorrow, but there has been a gain as far as the child is concerned. So there is sorrow plus unhappiness. So I wouldn't, because see what happens when Jupiter is in the 4th from the natal moon. So he is in the Kendra to the natal moon. A Kendra benefic planet in a Kendra to the natal moon in transit cannot give us a negative effect. So he could I mean, Parashara could mean, or in the olden days, if a child went away from home, it could mean sorrow. If a daughter got married, it could mean a sorrow. Therefore, he might be saying, for that reason, he might be putting in this word sorrow. Gain of wealth and child. Again, if you look at the fifth house is a karaka for children. Fifth house is also emotions, and fifth house is also gains through gambling and stuff like that. So he says when Jupiter is in the fifth, it is good, or there might be a birth of child. Now you will say, I am 70 years old, how am I going to get a child? It may not be you may get a grandchild, right? Or it might be that you start something new, which is as good as having a child. Any child needs caring and support. Any new business needs caring and support. So probably when Jupiter is in the fifth house from natal moon, you may go into a new job, you may go into a new business which needs the same amount of caring and same amount of love that you would probably invest on a child. In the sixth house, Jupiter gives you enemies. Again, the thought process is benefic planets in malefic houses. Benefic planets in malefic houses does not give you courage to conquer them, does not give you courage to conquer them. Mars being a malefic planet in the sixth house gives you courage to conquer your enemies. Benefics in the sixth do not give you courage to conquer your enemies, and therefore there is enmity during that 1 year. Or you might find everybody feel of everybody being your enemy because you don't have the courage to conquer it. Now, in the seventh house, Jupiter gives her happiness, good journeys from wife, and happiness from wife and happiness from journeys. That means any journey undertaken during Jupiter in the seventh house from the natal moon would end in happiness, and there would be happiness from wife. Or we also say that if Jupiter is in the seventh house from your lagna, from your Chandra, you are, or even from the lagna or Chandra lagna, we would say it's time for you to get married if you have not got married. Again, as I said, in 8th house, it gives us diseases, again propounding the same principle thought process that benefic planets in malefic houses does not have the ability to conquer. 10th house, gains all round. Jupiter is the karaka for dharma. Jupiter is the karaka for society. Therefore, there is gains all round. In the 10th house, he has given danger to gains and children. Again, I am not understanding why he has given gains, danger to gains and children. I have been trying to, give a logical answer to this. I have not been successful so far. If any of you can give it to me, I would be really happy to think about it in that angle. Because see, it becomes the 10th house is another Kendra house from the Chandra. So why is Faladipika saying that there is sorrow in the 4th house, which is one Kendra house, but there is happiness in the second Kendra house, that is the 7th house? Why is he saying danger in the 3rd Kendra house, which is the 10th house? I am not being able to give a logical answer to this, right? So I'm going to leave that. I'll pass that by. The 11th house, yes, but as I said, all planets, whenever is in the 11th house from the natal moon, it gives us success all round. 12th house, fear, grief, fear from gains. Again, 12th house is hospitalization, but here we are not, he is saying fear from gains. So what he is trying to say that we may not get the money what we are supposed to get, may be the thought process of Faladipika Mantreshwara when he gave us this sentence. But I have seen that when Jupiter is in the 12th from the natal moon, it does give us health issues. It does give us health issues in many forms. So Jupiter in the 12th from the moon is not a comfortable position as far as health is concerned. Therefore, here said fear, grief, fear, and fear from gains and grief. So probably grief, yes, I can understand, because they definitely give us health issues. Now in the next slide, let us look at Saturn and then Rahu Ketu. If I cannot load the sides all together, probably I will cut it into half and load it. Right? Thank you. Saturn. Saturn is a little tough to understand, because when Saturn is in the 12th from the natal moon and on the natal moon and in the second from natal moon, 12, 1, 2 from the natal moon is called Sadesati, or the dreaded 7.5 years Shani. Please let me tell you, not all of us have negative influences during this period. Okay, right? But we do face some kind of ups and downs when Saturn is transiting over the 12th house, the first house, and the second house. Business giving losses. It could also mean stop of business. Performing last rites in the first house. It could mean that a near and a dear one is lost, therefore performing of last rites. It's loss of wealth, because Saturn is going to the second house of money, therefore loss of wealth. Now the fourth house, when Saturn is in third house, of course, as I said, malefic planets in the third house allows you to conquer all the negativities that you are running. So Saturn in the third gives us gains. Now the fourth house is called Adhaya, that is 2.5 years of Saturn in the fourth from the moon. Loss of relations, separation from family members is you may go abroad, then that is loss of relationship, right? In the fifth house, it could be financial losses. In the sixth house, again, all round happiness. Again, a malefic planet in a malefic house, sixth house of Upachaya. You overcome all your losses and therefore you have all round happiness. Seventh house, loss of wealth. It could also mean loss of spouse, because it is aspecting the Lagna, right? It also aspects the 10th house, and it will also aspect the 9th house, sorry. If Saturn is in the 7th house, he will aspect the 9th house, he will aspect the Lagna, and he will aspect the 3rd from Lagna. Therefore, it could be loss all round. Okay, danger to life when it is in the 8th. When Saturn transits over the 8th house from the moon, it is called the Ashtam Shani. When Saturn transits over the 8th, it is called the Ashtam Shani, or Ashta. Ashta means 8, Ashtaka means 8. 8 Saturn in the 8th house is danger to life, because 8th house is the life, is the longevity of life, and when Saturn is the Karaka for death, therefore Saturn in the 8th is a danger to life. 9th, loss of losses and obstacles. The unnecessary events might happen which does not allow you to function naturally or regularly. Sinful actions is in the 10th house. Again, see, the 10th house is another Kendra house. 4th house is one house, Kendra house, and 10th house is the other Kendra house. 7th house is the third Kendra, or 1, 4, 7 and 10 are the 3 Kendra houses, and therefore when Saturn transits these Kendra houses, it gives us negative results. As I said, 11th house, it gives us happiness, all kind of happiness. All planets in the 11th house give us happiness. Now, in the last slide, let us look at Rahu and Ketu. Rahu and Ketu are only an imaginary point of the sun and the moon, right? That we know of. Now, let us look at its results. Sickness or death. Rahu is considered to be a swallower because he swallowed the Amrita before he was chopped off. Ketu is considered to be a coil or a lower part of the snake who can, squeeze you. Therefore, when Rahu or Ketu are in the first house, see, one thing is that they are always 180 degrees away from each other. So, if Rahu is in the first house, that is on the natal moon, Ketu will be in the seventh house from the natal moon, blocking the energies of the moon. Therefore, sickness or death. We cannot 100% say death will happen, but death like situation will definitely be enjoyed by the natives when they have Rahu and Ketu on the natal moon. Second house, loss of wealth due to stupidity from our side, because second house is also the house of liquid money, it is house of flow of money. Rahu being in the second house may give us ideas to invest on something which everybody might have told us that it's a wrong idea. So Ketu might not have material wealth. If Ketu is in the second house, there might be a shortage of material wealth. If Rahu is in the second, he may give you a feeling of taking unnecessary chances. Happiness in the third house, as I said, malefic planets gives happiness in the Upachaya houses or gives gains in the Upachaya houses. In the third house, all round happiness, you are able to conquer your fears, you are able to overcome your enemies, you are able to be positive in your approach, put in more work, or be more hardworking when Rahu transits the third house. Sorrows, again, benefic planets, malefic planets in benefic houses does not give good results. As I said, benefic planets in malefic houses do not give good results. Financial losses in the fifth house, maybe due to the birth of a child. Any child is an expense today. You may have a child, but it might also give you financial losses. Happiness in the sixth house, again, as I said, you will be able to conquer your debts, diseases and disputes. Therefore, happiness in the sixth house. Loss of wealth in the seventh house, it could be an emotional loss or it could be a materialistic loss. Danger to life, again, as I said, if Rahu is in the eighth house, then Ketu is in the second house, which is also the house of death. Loss of wealth in the ninth, it could be an emotional loss, it could be a loss of father, it could be a child going abroad. That could also be a loss for us. 10th house, gain of wealth. Rahu in the 10th always multiplies your gains. Even if you have Rahu in the 10th in the natal chart, you are a lucky one, because there will be multiplication of wealth or unexpected earnings of the wealth. In the 12th house, in the 11th house, there is happiness or there is gains, and in the 12th house there is expenditure. But Rahu in the 12th house gives us positive